Welcome to Rock That Relationship, a podcast about all things relationship with Corey and Tracy.
Now let's get real and start creating relationships that rock.
Welcome to Rock That Relationship. Tracy and I are back today with this awesome episode in our Unstuck series all about contending with the shoulds, right? You know, they say, don't should on me, right? Like this idea of, you know, we're compelled to do certain things or stay in certain situations because of external and sometimes even internal factors. So the shoulds. So what do you think about this topic, Tracy?
Well, I know this very well because I have a law degree. So therefore, in everyone's mind, opinion, and out of their mouth, I should practice as a lawyer.
Oh, so
because
yeah.
I got the law degree, therefore I should practice as, well, an attorney. I just went to breakfast with somebody who told me there's a difference between attorney and lawyer, and I didn't even know that. Lawyer didn't necessarily pass the bar but went to law school, but attorneys are bar licensed. And I went to the trouble of getting licensed in 2 different states, and therefore I should practice law. And I spent a lot of money to go to law school, therefore I should practice as a lawyer or an attorney.
Wow. Well, that's a good example. And I did not know that about lawyer and attorney.
I did not either, and I am one.
Wow. Now, I won't say that my friend is a lawyer. I'm going to say my friend is an attorney.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, do I have a responsibility because I got a certain degree?
Right.
I mean, do I? Is that a should? I mean, it is in everybody else's mind. It's not mine. But I also did get hit by a car the second day of law school, and the payout from that, I mean, it made it kind of like, oh, it was a wash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hope that in the end that just because you've been in some kind of a violent vehicular accident that you don't feel compelled to take on a job for the rest of your life just because.
No, but I'm saying like I didn't actually, I mean, I did pay for law school. I guess I could have done a lot more fun things with that money. But in my mind, it was like, oh, well, I don't have law school loans, so therefore I don't need to work as a lawyer. But everybody, you know what I mean? Like,
right. For
me, I wanted the degree. I just wanted the education. But a lot of people put the shoulds on me. A lot. Yes.
Well, and we should ourselves too. We should ourselves a lot because what other people are saying is shoulding on you. Well, let's take a look at some of these.
Be careful, Corey. We're not allowed to have explicit.
I know, right? I have to tag it. Tag it.
Should.
No minors.
Shoulding on you.
Nobody's. Yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at the 5 different ways that people should themselves. Okay. It does sound weird when I say it like that.
Yeah, but it sounds funny. It's good. They should what? They should stay in their job because. Okay.
So here's a good one. Logic. People should themselves based on logic, right? And some of these shoulds aren't necessarily bad. They just are should. So I need to stay in this job because I get health insurance or because it provides me a paycheck, right?
So I've been contributing to a 401k. I had that discussion with somebody yesterday.
Exactly.
I didn't realize when you leave a place and you have a 401k there, your 401k is like defunct or something.
Well, it just usually doesn't travel with you to the next job.
Yeah, that's really.
But it doesn't mean it's not your money.
But we've set it up just not great. And yes, a lot of people stay, and they stay because they should, and they actually do need health insurance and they need these other things, and they're getting them through a job.
Right. And the should is that I should stay in this job because I get health insurance. Whereas the reality is if you need health insurance, you could find maybe another job that provides health insurance. But a lot of times we think, oh, that's very scary. So I'm going to just use this basic logic that I am trapped. I am stuck. I can't get out because I'd lose my health insurance. And that there is there's a reality to that. Now, a lot of organizations are like having the first 90 days where you don't have health insurance, which I think is completely absurd. I've never heard of that until recently because I've been employed at the same place for a really long time. But it seems, it seems really, that seems like a scary
It's very scary. It's scary to leave your job and then know you're not going to have health insurance for at least 90 days, which in this country could be catastrophic.
Absolutely. So it's a should that maybe you're sitting there with. So could it be that you find another job and you get private health insurance, you get COBRA, or you get I do remember actually I did have a 90-day delay when I left my former university But I had so much vacation time that I actually extended my end date of my job to be 3 months after I actually started working. So I was really fortunate because I had so much sick time and PTO.
Right.
So, but not everybody can do that.
No, because not everybody gets it where it rolls over, just as government jobs. It does. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't even do that anymore. I used to, 15, 20 years ago. Okay. Here's another should. Now, these are the ones that are more that we want to contend with, because sometimes the logic you have to say, okay, like there are some realities here, but ego. And we've talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to stay in this job to, for instance, spite my boss. So I remember I had a situation where I did not get along very well with my supervisor. And it was really, really a challenging situation. And I think we were both playing chicken to see who would leave first. And so I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm going to outlast her. And then she was thinking, I think the same thing. I would guess. I don't know what she was thinking, but it seemed like it. And so I wouldn't leave because I was like, I'm stuck here. I don't like this job. I don't want to be here, but I'm not going to let her win. And I really did that. I stayed for additional years. And I didn't hate the job, but I was kind of stuck in my dreams because I could have gone and done other things, but I stayed. Have you ever had that where you stayed out of ego or fear of like loss? We've talked a little bit about loss of reputation, but just something like if you weren't an attorney anymore.
No,
that's never happened to you.
No. In fact, if I don't like someone, I am gone. I'm out of there faster than anything else. I don't care. Take it. Keep the company. I don't give a shit. I mean, there's no way I would stay somewhere I didn't like. I mean, that's the thing. Like, no, I'm the opposite. I'll just go.
Yeah. What about if it's not a person, but it's like your reputation? Like, would you quit being an attorney to go do something that wasn't as reputationally profound? Or
nope. I mean, you know me. I have a job at a pickleball club for $16 an hour, for God's sake, while I'm an attorney. So no, I'm not like that. I'm really seeking like happiness. And I really did. The longest job I ever had was the police department, and that was 8 years. And there was a lot I really liked about that. There were so many aspects of that job that just suited me so well. But there were other aspects that were too big to ignore.
Okay, so ego is not a factor. For me, ego is a factor. I, want to outlast the people that are, have somehow done me wrong in my mind, or I want to stay somewhere reputationally, and I end up getting, and I don't, like we've talked about, I don't get stuck very often, but when I do, I am very clear as to why that is, and it's a choice.
Well, and I think if that's an issue, I think it depends on like, professions. Some professions, you're gonna stay longer in one place. They don't jump around as much as like attorneys or other people might, right? Where it's not as looked down upon if you're jumping around.
I mean, that is true, right? If I left, a professor or even a job in higher education every 2 years, if it was at the beginning of my career, maybe, but towards the end, if I'm jumping around, that is kind of alarmist a little bit, because people stay in my field for a very long time, and even in a particular institution forever.
Right. Which they should. I agree with that.
Right.
I mean, most of them, they're not abusive. Like the whole point of higher education, in my opinion, is to have institutional knowledge and to have people that are really in-depth experts on their subject matter, which is great in the law also, but it's not as looked down upon to leave, because law is so crushing and hard, and people understand that you move around or want a break or something, or want different kind of clients.
Exactly.
Subject matter.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another should. And this one is interesting because it takes a little twist on something we've talked about before. It's fear disguised as intuition. So sometimes we intuitively think, I'm going to stay where I am because it doesn't feel right to leave right now. And intuitively we know that. But sometimes it's fear disguised as intuition. So we make an excuse. We're like, I'm going to stay because it just doesn't feel like divine timing right now to leave. It's just not, it doesn't feel, I can feel it in my gut. I'm supposed to stay. Now, intuitively, if you really do feel it in your gut, maybe there is a reason to stay. But sometimes we use that as an excuse, because then we don't have to answer to anyone, right? Because people can say, you should do this, you should do that. And you say, it just doesn't feel right. I can't put my finger on it. And then people will relatively leave you alone, right? How do you counter that? Have you ever come across that or seen that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of people are doing that. But, I mean, it's all these factors probably together, but you know what I mean? I think when this comes into play more is like if it's something super toxic and then they're still not leaving.
Yeah. Right.
You
You
know,
can say it's not the right time to leave. And sometimes, like,
but,
again, sometimes it isn't the right time to leave, but sometimes people use that as an excuse to
but
stay.
it's so interesting because I bounce around, but I was raised to bounce around from home to home and home. I mean, we moved 18 times before I was 20, and yet my older sister is like plunk in one place, and then she's had this job for a long time that I mean, I guess she makes good money and stuff, but I'm like, gosh, you and your husband have worked so many more years than I've worked as an adult. Why do you keep doing this? You know, it doesn't seem like you have to do this. So I feel like it's just habit for her. And maybe it is maybe it is fear. I don't know what it is, because we do talk about it, and it's like, why don't you go do something else? This seems like a risk to your safety, what she's doing right now. And, also you're not happy. And, you know, like, I think also her thing is there really something better out there? You know, it's a risk. Some people just are not risk takers also.
Right. And like we talked about before, stuck or stagnant, right? So like people are fine being complacent. Like they think that.
Well, but also that's that saying, the devil you know is better than the one you don't.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So it can be scary, and you can give yourself all sorts of internal messages to convince yourself that like, nope, like don't leave, even though maybe intuitively you know you should, and you're pushing that message away. Okay, here's another one. People get stuck, and the should is out of regret. I'm going to stay because I might regret it if I leave. Like, I can't undo it. I can't undo a breakup, or if I sell my house, I can't get it back. If I quit my job, I can't leave. And I've had this recurring nightmare, not in the last several years, but for many, many years, I had a recurring nightmare that I had gone into my boss's office. And it was every different boss, not just the one that I was having difficulty with, but all along for like 20 years, I would go into my boss's office and I would quit my job. Not because I didn't like my job. There was nothing about it. I just would quit my job in my dream, and then I would wake up in like a sweat, completely freaked out that I quit my job. And for a minute, I almost thought I did. And the fear of having to like go back in.
Why would that be your dream for so long?
I have no idea. I mean,
if you liked your job, why were you dreaming about that?
I have no idea. I don't think it was a literal interpretation. I think there was probably something going on in my life right then that I wanted out of. And I thought if I left, maybe it was too soon. And I have a tendency to stay in things, or at least I did, stay in things a little too long. And I would think maybe I wanted to get out of it, but then I would be like, what if I regretted that? And so it probably didn't even have to do with my job.
Interesting. I mean, I think that is a real fear for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
That you're not going to be able to get it back. I mean, that's hard. Change is hard for most people. And a lot of people just don't change. I mean, they stay where they grew up. I mean, maybe they're happy. That's great if they're happy, right? But if they're like wanting to do something, I think that fear of regret, fear of like, all of those things are legitimate. But I mean, I can totally see that if you leave. I mean, I really blew things up with the police department. And I did it because, number one, I was reactionary. I was only 32. And, I regret a lot of that. And my best friend's like, well, maybe you had to do it and you might have been killed if you stayed, or something worse could have happened. Like, you can't sit there and live your life. And like, I don't have many regrets. One is not going to law school, and one is leaving the police department too early. I mean, not law school, medical school, And so those are things that on my deathbed, if somebody asked me, like, what do you regret? It'd be like leaving that job too soon, and also not going through with medical school, which I should have done in the first place. And I think that those are things that, like, a lot of, like, I burned those bridges on purpose because I knew I would want to go back once I left. And maybe I had to. Maybe there was something under, intuition telling me to get out of there. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right. But I mean, what you're talking about
that's a legitimate fear.
Yeah, I mean, you're demonstrating the fact that I don't know anyone that doesn't have at least one regret in life. So the fear of regretting a decision is not a false one, because we do actually have regrets. Right. And so I mean, that's the scary part, right? Is like, it's not like you're fearing something that never is going to happen. Like we've made decisions.
Well, but like a professor job, you can't leave and then come back. I mean, generally, right? Because tenure, I mean, all of that is designed, right? Some of those jobs are designed that way. Civil service, the police department, you know how hard it is to go back. And at that time when I left, it wasn't like it is now where they're hurting for people. I mean, I really tanked it for myself, and I felt like I had a need. And now as a person in my 50s, I do look back and think that maybe that did save my life. Maybe it was intuition that I had that I needed to get out of there, that something dreadful was going to happen if I stayed.
Mm-hmm. And it could have been, right? And then you blew it up so that you couldn't go back because maybe something was going to happen to you later if you did go back.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I mean, these are real things. I mean, and think about relationships too. I mean, if you have a bad enough breakup or a betrayal or something, those are things you can't, in many cases, undo and go back in time. Right. And so they are real regrets. So even though these are shoulds, like as we're talking about, all of them have legitimacy. It's just, but they also keep us stuck. So we have to unpack them and say, is this a real fear of mine? Like if I were to quit my professor job, because I'm unsure if I want to be a professor, probably not a really good idea. But if I am 100% sure this is not the life I want, then maybe that makes sense. I won't have as many regrets, right?
Right. For sure.
Okay. Here's the last one. This one is really interesting. Replacing a should with a could. Okay. Think about this. Mm-hmm. Where we say to ourselves, like, I'm in this job, but it could be worse. I could have this person's job, or I have this horrible schedule, but it could be worse. I could work even an hour later. And so what you do is you kind of justify staying because you're kind of, having this doom and gloom of an alternative that may or may not be a real comparison. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's legit, right? I mean, I could look at my whole life and say, yeah, it could be worse, right? Like, I could have nothing. Instead of this tiny townhouse, I could have nothing. Instead of this, I could have nothing. Instead of, I mean, I think that's legitimate. You don't know when you leave something. The other thing is also you don't know if you stay that anything in life is guaranteed, That's
true.
Jobs, people, whatever, I mean, after I got let go from that law firm, my paralegal was there and they got rid of her 3 months later and she didn't do anything wrong. So she devoted herself to them even after they got rid of me, and then they got rid of her for who even knows what reason. So I don't know. It's like, do you have kids and you have to feed them? Do you have pets with medical issues? Like, really, what can you need to figure out what can you live with and what can't you,
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. It's like when you think about, okay, so you're in a relationship, it's kind of fulfilling, but not fully fulfilling, and you're just going day to day. But then you look at your friend who's like is in a horrible relationship, and then you look at another friend who's in a horrible relationship, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, mine isn't that bad, so I'm going to stay. But if you were to put that up against other people who have excellent relationships, then you might say, wow, this is really bad. I want to get out. And
you look and think, what do you really, really want? And what are you willing to sacrifice or get rid of to have that? And that might be money. If you're talking about relationships, it might be that you end up single and now you're like, oh my gosh, I do want that companionship of that person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So it could be worse, I don't know. But sometimes we do use it as an excuse, because if something isn't really good, if we think of all the worst things it could be, then we just stay in that state of something really good and maybe don't sometimes go after the things we want, because we're constantly thinking like, well, I should be grateful for what I have. And that is true, correct? Like all of these are true, but it still holds us in place sometimes.
Well, and we have to be realists, and we all want to be like the people on Instagram and on, TikTok who are making 6 figures times 12, living abroad on the beach all the time, frolicking. And we think like we should be like them, but that is not realist for most people. And that's the other thing is like, what is your life going to be? Like, can everybody live in the romance of the Notebook? Probably not. But can some people?
I can.
Yeah. Well, I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a hardcore romantic, even though sometimes I'm pissy about it or I'm down on it. But yes, that's the thing. Maybe you can. Maybe everybody can, but maybe you can't. Not everybody can have the freedom to travel, to do what they want, to, you know what I mean? That it's just not realistic. I mean, but if you listen to all the manifesting people, they believe it is.
Well, because they've manifested it. I mean, how many manifesting podcasts have I listened to where I'm like, they keep talking about how they went from, being broke and unemployed to now earning like 7 figures with their coaching business and stuff.
Right.
And but I mean, what you're talking about really is this balance, right? Because it really could be worse, right? It really could be. And not everybody is like, if I wanted to be, an Olympic athlete, a diver, I don't even like swimming, probably not realistic. But at the same time, if I'm in an unhappy situation and I use the excuse it could be worse to stay in that unhappy situation versus saying, yeah, of course it could be worse, but it could also be better, right? Like go after what you want as opposed to just sitting there and then time passes, 20 years goes by and you're like, well, yeah, at least it wasn't worse.
Should have done that.
But I should have done that, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. It's all a balancing act. It's a cost benefit analysis, and do you have tolerance for risk?
Exactly.
So,
okay, let's look at where the shoulds come from. We've talked already in this season about a few of these, and so I'll just mention them. But I want to talk about 2 of them that I think are really key. So the first one, that we've already talked about is internal chatter, the messages we send ourselves, societal expectations, other people's opinions, our past trauma. We've talked about some of that stuff in earlier episodes, but there's 2 that I think are really fascinating. One is something you say all the time. So maybe you could apply this concept to the idea of being stuck and maybe getting unstuck, is this idea of comparing is despairing. Are we really stuck? Right? So what is comparing is despairing? What does that even mean?
Well, I think it is both ways, right? Comparing, I'm looking at these people who are more wealthy than me. I'm looking at them. They have better jobs. They have whatever. But I've made certain choices and then I'm just like down on myself because I don't have what they have. So if I didn't see them, maybe I'd be happy with what I have and it wouldn't bother me, right? So what is that? The other term is like keeping up with the Joneses, or the grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing. That might be a little different, but like comparing is despairing. If you're constantly comparing yourself to others, you're going to be down in the dumps. It's going to make you less grateful for what you have. Like, you know what I mean? Okay, I just got back from Thailand, right? Rural Thailand in the mountains. I'm talking people are living in houses on sticks with like some piece of wood on the side where bugs are getting in. And I mean, there's no such thing as screens or, they don't have washing machines. They're literally living on a hillside in the trees. And I was dropping off some snacks for some elephants, and a lady I knew from the kitchen was at her house, like picking some trash out of the side of her house, or like, it's the weirdest thing, like inside. And I noticed like the side of the house doesn't really touch the floor of the house, right? So she was there pulling kind of trash that was like inside of her house out, or she was picking some bugs off or something. And she turned around, she saw me on the truck, and she was so excited. She started waving and she was like pointing, like, she speaks only Burmese, but she's like, my house, like this, like in Burmese, like, this is my house. And she was so excited to show me her house. And I'm talking 5 feet away is the biggest pile of trash you've ever seen. All the chickens are just picking through the trash. It's just all plastic in this pit. They're going to burn. And that lady could not have been more proud to show me her house.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's a great example.
And as long as I have bug spray, I could live there just fine in that village.
Right.
I probably would clean up the trash a little bit, but that's me. But like, if I have bug spray, and so I was thinking about that, like when my dogs pass, can I live here, right? So in Thailand, your foreigners aren't allowed to buy property, but except for a condo, you can't own the land, but you can own the space above or something like that. So I thought about that. Could I live in this village on the side of the hill? Could I live with these people? Because when I'm staying there, I'm staying as a paying volunteer, so I'm getting a more Western style room. And that's another thing. One of the other kitchen gals, a real young gal, like 18, came by my room one day and she wanted to see inside. I'm like, come in and see my room. She was shocked at how big it was. I had a bathroom, because most of them, the bathrooms, where they live, the bathroom's outside. All the toilets and showers are away from their house. And so she was looking at my room like in awe. And I'm like, oh my God, if like I had told my sister they had air conditioning, she was like grossed out by her room when she was there. And I was like, oh, whoops, I never even noticed there wasn't air conditioning. And like, so for my sister coming from Western standards, and then when I went back to Thailand, she went to Maui instead, like for her it was yuck, right? for this Burmese girl walking along, she was like in shock at what a beautiful, huge room I was in.
Yeah.
And for us, I'm like, that's not even like but my bedroom at home. Like, it's nothing special. And so it's really just, comparing is despairing.
Right.
If you're just constantly looking at what other people have.
Yeah, you're going to feel a certain way about yourself. You might feel stuck. Like, I think, social media is a great example. People don't usually post a lot of bad things about their life on social media sometimes, but most of the stuff is like, look, I won this award, or look, I did this. I even post, look, I climbed a mountain, right? But I don't tell you about all the twisted ankles I had and all the mountains I didn't make it up and stuff. And so when you look at that stuff,
I do.
Well, I know you. Yeah. But
I tell everybody everything.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, this idea is that we live in a world in which we highlight the successes and we mute the sad parts or the hard parts, and it makes it look like things are just easy for people. I mean, you and I have had this conversation because, I've come into a point in my career where things are a lot more settled. I'm a lot more established. But, and I keep reminding you, you didn't know me when I drove around this clunker car. Well, I do have a clunker car still, but a different clunker car, eating, lentils out of the bag and wondering how I was going to pay the electric bill for decades on end, practically. And you've come in now to this last half of my book, and you're like, oh wait, you're established. And it's like, no, hold on a second. If you're comparing your life to what I am now, don't you've missed the whole story. And so
that's all the same about these people who people say, oh my God, you're an overnight success to these actors. And they're like, I've been acting since I was 5.
Right, exactly.
Just this movie got picked up. Or, you look at like, what was that magazine? It's like called Self, or I don't know what. It's a women's magazine with women in bathing suits on the front. And I was like at a doctor's office. So I like read it and I thought this should not be in a doctor's office, because the person on the front, an actress, I forget who it was like, yes, I eat egg whites and, like only chicken breast with nothing on it and pieces of broccoli for lunch. And it's like, okay, you don't even eat that much. That's a lie. Like I read, books where they're eating like cotton balls, soaked in orange juice, because you look at them and you think, how can any person be that thin or, that? And that's what, I never was one of those people. Look, I'm a chubby lesbian. I don't care. Well, I wasn't chubby for a long time, but now I am right now. And like, I don't care. So I'm not going to hurt myself to fit into some box, but a lot of people do. And it causes anorexia. It causes all kinds of issues for people. So I think if you're comparing yourself to other people, don't, because maybe you don't have that bone structure. Maybe you don't have those genetics. Maybe they're getting that look at a sacrifice that they're lying about. They're not telling you that they're eating cotton balls.
Well,
you find that out later when they're in the hospital.
I think eating cotton balls, that's scary. But
it is. That's what actresses do. Did you not know that?
Oh, my God. No, I didn't know that.
They soak them in orange juice, and then they eat the cotton balls so their stomach feels full.
Oh, my God. And then, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so there.
Let me give you another example that isn't cotton balls and orange juice, because that is really just a hard picture to imagine.
Yeah.
But there was this commercial on, oh my gosh, probably 15 years ago, and it's a guy, he's riding on his lawnmower thing, and he's like, the big houses in the background, and he's like, hi, I have everything I want, but I'm mortgaged to the hilt, and I can't afford anything. And he's he's supposed to be this commercial about like how you can have everything, but basically he says that he has nothing, and he's scared that he's going that everything's going to topple down. And it's like that keeping up with the Joneses, right? We take that mortgage out on the house, or we buy that fancy car we can't afford because we don't want to be stuck in our old car, or we go and we do things, we go on that big elaborate vacation, right, that we can't afford because we need to keep up with the Joneses, when in reality it's the same thing as like the people on the front of the magazine. It's like people think I can be like that too, I'm going to do that, and it's like, no.
Well, if you're willing to eat cotton balls, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't know what that person's doing behind the scenes to get what they have.
No, exactly.
Well, and are you willing to sacrifice to have that?
Right. And a lot of times, no, because like we go back to the idea of social media, people aren't telling you what the real cost is. Here's an interesting thing that I learned. I took this happiness class. I think it was through Berkeley edX. Really cool. I'll put some info in the show notes on it. But it was about happiness. And at the time, this was during COVID, they had done research that said that happiness peaks in terms of your income, right about $75,000 a year. Now, granted, depending on how
Right,
big your family is and where you live and all
right.
that. But the whole point was that there was a finite number that said that after you make that much money, there are no indicators of more happiness. So this idea of comparing, like not having enough and not having enough, there's actually a financial apex to that, right? When you get to that. And it's probably not 75,000 now, but that idea that when we compare, right? Like, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and this woman's like, I'm rich. I have a ton of money coming in, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel like enough. And I have to keep doing more things to get more money. And it's like addictive. And the more money wasn't making her happier. She was just comparing herself to other people and saying, I want, if they've got, I'm 6 digits, income, right. I want 7 digits, and I want, to keep moving up. So,
well, we're seeing that example play out in real life. Like, how much money do people need, right? Like,
exactly.
What do you need to be happy?
Right.
I think every person has to figure that out.
And
make that cost benefit analysis. Could I work more and make more money? Sure. But then would I be happy? I just had that conversation with a friend at breakfast. Like, I could make more, but I was making more and I didn't like what I was doing and I didn't like how I felt. It made me feel sick. And like, I'll give up. Like, brunch today costs $23. Okay. 2 years ago, it would have been probably like 12, right? I mean, things have gone skyrocketing. And I thought, I want to support this restaurant because they're putting on a vegan brunch, but I don't actually want to go and eat it. It made me feel just, it's too much food. It's too heavy. And like, I'm not working so I can go do a bunch of things that they're not that important to me. Like, what's really important to me? I can get rid of the brunch. I can meet a friend for a walk instead. I'll suggest something else. You know what I mean? So you got to figure out, like, yeah, do I want something that's going to cost money? Can I work extra for it? And I don't believe in living in bitterness. Like, if you don't have stuff, then maybe you get a side hustle. Maybe you change your job. You have to say, like, am I going to be a teacher and get low pay? Yeah, but I love teaching so much. So either become an advocate to like raise the pay or go somewhere else, go do a different profession. Like, if the money thing, it's which is more important.
Right, exactly. Because for you felt stuck in a gig in which you were making a really good amount of money. You didn't, some people feel stuck because they're not making enough money. In your case, that wasn't a consideration. You were stuck because you didn't feel happy doing what you were doing to get that money. And now,
and I was making a fortune.
Yeah. And now you can hone it back and you can be unstuck from that obligation and now feel happier doing what you're doing, even though it's making less money. So everybody's, values are going to be really different. Some people might want to get unstuck from their salary, and some people may want to get unstuck from their lifestyle or, their day to day. Okay, let's hit the last one here, because I think this is super interesting. I also heard this the other day on a podcast, which is sometimes we should ourselves because of past life stuff. We avoid taking action on something we know is good for us because our subconscious sees it as a threat, as something that may have happened in a past life. And we can't really even identify, like, I don't want to move away, far away from, this community that I grew up in, even though I don't like living here, because maybe in a past life you did do that and being far away, something bad happened. What are your thoughts on that? We're kind of dipping into, I put some information in the show notes because I do have this episode. It's on Manifest Babe, which I really like. And I'll put it in the show notes so people can listen to it. What are your thoughts on maybe past life things that influence our shoulds of today?
Well, I've been told that actually by several people that I have real past life trauma about writing because I've wanted to be a writer my whole life, and then I haven't done it because of lack of confidence. And when people meet me, they're like, you should write a book. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's been, I've literally had people that come up to me on the street and say that. So it's like signs, right? Someone is telling me I should do that. And then I can't. And I'm like paralyzed. And it's annoying to you. It's annoying to my therapist. It's annoying to everybody who's ever worked with me on it, except for Bethany, who told me I have serious past life trauma for being an outspoken person and a writer where my stuff was excoriated, and not because it was bad, but because it was like either politically out there, which, I am that person in this lifetime too, but it's this fear of judgment. I mean, you and I have had this whole conversation and it doesn't make sense to you. And what I'm saying is when people meet me, I'm super, super confident person. I was a police officer. I'm an attorney. I do a podcast. I feel just fine talking on, podcasts. I do stand up. Like, I don't I do not have confidence issues. But when it comes to the writing, I go like, it's like I lose my mind, except that I recently took that writer studio class and we had to go in person. We had to submit our stuff and I actually felt great. And I was super, super confident about what I wrote and it was very well received. And so I was like, I need to do another one of these classes. I need in order for me to overcome this past life trauma, I've got to take these steps now. And I'm going to be 55 this summer and it's taken me this long to come around to what is my dream? How can I fulfill this dream? And why, when I think of it, internally, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's never made sense.
Does that comport with my personality at all?
Like, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like you are so confident and direct and out and you go, you're a go-getter in so many other things. And this is just, and you're not afraid of other people's judgment. Do I lack any confidence? Not in this kind of thing, but you're not afraid of other people's judgment. You're like, if they don't like what I put on Facebook, oh, well. Like, so it's interesting because you'll write on Facebook, you'll write on social media, and you're okay with the critical judgment that happens there, and you'll engage with people. But for whatever reason, if you were to publish something that you can't go in and delete, edit, remove from the world, or even rebut, right? Because the thing about Facebook is someone says there's a comment in there, you can reply. Once you publish a book, you can't reply to things. And so I think there's some kind of a different element of the fear of judgment, your inability to engage, to defend your writing, that I think is probably at the heart of this. And
well, it's interesting because no one really criticizes my Facebook stuff like anymore, probably because I got rid of a lot of people. But now I just kind of put like, my thoughts about and being at peace and, being at a sanctuary or, finding peace and like hiking and all that. So I'm not writing anything super controversial.
No, and a lot of dog stuff and people like dogs and they're like,
who could not like dogs?
So part of that. But at the same time, even when you did put up stuff where you would get different opinions on there, you would engage very respectfully with these people. So I think that there's an element of you that's got a fear of this kind of unleft judgment. I fear
I fear they're going to be critical, or this is what they're going to say. And my therapist is like, has anyone ever said that to you? And I'm like, no, I fear that they're going to say, this is garbage writing. That's my fear. Okay. That they're going to say, this is like a third grader wrote it.
Well, okay, let me tell you this story. So when I published one of my first books, I published a book called Generation Z Goes to College. I was so excited about this book. Thrilled. Got up on Amazon, and of course I made the big mistake, which authors should never be really doing, is looking at my reviews. And I saw someone gave me a 3-star. I had a bunch of 5 stars and a 3-star. It wasn't a 1-star review. It was a 3-star review, and wrote just some comments in there about, it wasn't anything too harsh, but it was still a 3-star review, and I was not happy about it. So I clicked on the reviewer, and I'm like, I wonder if this person just gives 3-star reviews to everyone. No, this person gave a 5-star review to Greenie's dog treats. And I was like, you like dog treats more than my book. And then I realized that was the day I said, I am never going to look on my reviews again, because I don't know anybody who has a tough enough skin to be scrolling through hundreds of those things, especially if you get anything other than a 5-star review. So
haven't you ever watched that thing where they have celebrities read people's comments about them?
No.
And we're talking like George Clooney, who's that woman that did Monster? Gosh, I can't think of her name. She's so great, from South Africa.
Oh, Charlize Theron?
Charlize Theron. And they're like, she's a low rate, cheap whore, awful actress. The stuff they write is ridiculous. And I started watching that. There's somebody who's doing videos now where they actually go and get the profile pics of these people who write these horrible things online about other people, like Selena Gomez, and all these men are writing, oh, she's so chunky, she's so fat, she's so this. And then you see them in their profile pic, which is appalling. And it's like, yeah, why would Selena Gomez care what these people, these trolls, in their basement, in their house, in their, say? But we do. And it's like, just like yesterday, that lady came out and she screamed at me for stepping in her driveway with my dogs, like, get off her property, screaming at me. And I thought, society has changed so much. Like, I don't think it would have happened in the 1970s. It just wouldn't. Like, people are becoming meaner and like colder, and like, it is compare, criticize. And like, why would I criticize an actor or an actress? Like, they're just trying to do a job, and part of their job is publicity. Like, get over it. Leave these people alone. Like,
well, I mean,
you know what I mean?
It only makes it worse for someone like you who has some past life trauma about being criticized for your writing, that the world is continuing to become more critical, right? It's not giving you any peace of mind. It's like, well, no, Tracy, people are really supportive now these days, and put it out there, because I couldn't tell you that. They're harsh. They like Greenie's dog treats more than they like my book. And that wasn't even the bad one. I'm sure.
And do these people even know anything about the subject matter of your book? Like,
no,
why was this person even reading it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Just because they purchased it. But
I've only put one thing mean ever online. It wasn't mean. It was honest about that vet that I had the issue with, who pulled my dog up off the floor, and so evil to me. Well, I did write an honest review.
Okay, so the reviews, I mean, they're fine, but I'm thinking, especially with the writing stuff. But let's go back to this idea of this past life stuff. So when we think about it, if for our listeners out there, if you have something that you keep having these shoulds, and you don't know where they're coming from, like they're not coming from expectations. No one in your family has told you this, or your friends. You haven't even had past experiences to kind of blemish your thoughts. It might be something coming from a past life. And once you recognize that, then you can unpack it and start moving forward.
Yeah, but who do you go? We went to Akashic Reader.
Yep.
You went to a past life regression, so I didn't go to her yet. I'm going to do ayahuasca. A psychic can tell you that. Astrologer, Bethany, our favorite astrologer.
Yep. Tarot.
They can tell you.
I mean, anybody who's intuitive can really help you tap into this past life stuff and figure it out. Because I know I've got some past life things that I have to work through too. And, you and I have come up with some past life stuff too about, even you and me knowing each other. Hopefully we're going to do a bunch of episodes on this, but about knowing each other a lot in our lifetime. But for whatever reason, somehow I've at least at some points played a parenting role of you. And sometimes in our relationship,
I feel that sometimes
it shows
I want to push you away.
I know.
Gross. Get off me. And you're 3 years younger than me.
I know. And sometimes I feel like you're an unruly teen. And
I know. And I'm like, I can tell when you feel that way. And I'm like, get back off.
I know.
I'm not your child.
It's very weird.
I was your child at one point.
But some of this past life stuff is really important to look into. And I think a lot of our shoulds and our internal messaging sometimes doesn't come from the rational, conscious mind. And so.
Well, but that's the thing that all these people talk about, to free yourself, okay? To free, I'd say, and the reason that I believe in all this psychic stuff, I didn't get this started until you and I met, but you and I have gone to several of these people separately, and they have not said the same thing to both of us. These aren't people who are just giving you pat answers or BS, right? You and I went to the same Akashic Reader. She didn't say anything other than about the two of us together, which she did say we'd had past lives together. But she told me one person was my dog, and that person was so into my dog, it made complete sense when she said it. And then another person, that we went to told us different, the psychic did not tell me and you pat answers and say, okay, some stupid stuff. She told us some for real stuff.
Right. Exactly.
So you got to find legitimate people. You can't just go to the 1-800 number, lady. I think these real intuitives out there and who can look at that stuff. Again, I've been criticized for it by certain friends. Oh my God, you spent money on that, or you did that. I say, yeah. And guess what? It brought me to a place of higher peace. And for me to see, okay, past life stuff. Oh, okay. Could that be kooky? Why? I mean, there's so much evidence of it, but otherwise it's brought me so much peace. I have so much peace, right?
Yes.
That this isn't my first go around. It won't be my last. And I'm here to learn stuff. So I'm just going to learn as much as I can while I'm here. And I'm also going to be happy. I think I used to think that, and I still believe this, my purpose in this particular lifetime was not to become a career badass, but to master relationships. And you're even seeing the progression now as I'm moving forward. I am doing so much better with relationship stuff.
Right. Exactly. And when you are
and also, work stuff, I didn't blow up my work this time. We can talk about that in another podcast episode.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too, is once you kind of, think that maybe some of these messages you're getting are from your past life unresolved stuff, you can actually start to address it. If you know that you have some kind of fear of writing, now you're going to a writing class as opposed to just being like, okay, fine, I'll write that book and then be freaked out about it. You can find something smaller. And You know, in my case, the past life stuff has been, you know, I can't resolve these massive things, but I'm doing small things along the way, and I'm realizing that they're helping. And each of those little things is bringing me self-understanding and, like you said, peace. And so I'm finding a great value in that. But I do think that this is really important, because a lot of those shoulds and a lot of the reasons we stay frozen or stuck or we don't move or we don't take risks is because it's not something that's happened in this lifetime. It's something that's happened in the past.
100%.
All right. Well, we have a couple things just to kind of wrap it all up as we think about this. So how we confront these shoulds. We've talked a little bit about logic. Sometimes it isn't logical to, you know, get unstuck at the moment, but maybe there is something, maybe a small plan. Like, you can actually, you know, like we were talking about health insurance, right? You know, maybe there's a way that you can work it out where you can leave your job and get health insurance. So open yourself up to that. Your ego, maybe there's some things like, you know, staying at my job just to kind of spite my boss. Was that really the best idea? Now that I know that that is a should that I have, maybe I can work on that a little bit more and say, was that really productive? Sometimes fear disguised as intuition. I love this. This was something I heard in a podcast as well, is the difference between a ping and an urge. The ping is your intuition. If something is coming up over and over and over and sort of is nagging you and won't leave you alone, it's likely intuition. Listen to that. But if it's an urge, it's an impulsivity. It's something that just all of a sudden hits you, boom, really fast and then goes away. It's likely fear coming from our rational self. So before you make an excuse that something's intuitively holding you somewhere, is it really intuition? The last couple here is, you know, regret, our fear of regret, right? Have yourself a fallback or safety net. My brother has this friend of his that wants to be a mechanic and open his mechanic shop. And he's really good with cars. And he's like, I don't want to quit my full-time job to be a mechanic, because what if it doesn't work out? And my brother has told him on a number of occasions, well, don't quit your full-time job. Rent a garage like on a Saturday, every Saturday, and just start doing car stuff. And as it grows, then you can assess if you want to basically leave your job. That, it'll be less likely you'll regret it. And then the last one would be, it could be worse. Shift your mindset. I was in a relationship once many, many, many years ago. And it was, I had fallen out of love with this person. And I remember singing to myself, I would hum this to myself. If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. And that was my way of saying it could be worse. So just find a way to make this
How
work.
long did you stay going around humming that song?
Like a year.
And was it, at least, did you get along?
Yeah, we got along. We ended up being really
like
good friends.
Total misery?
No, we were really good friends. And it was about a year, and then it was sort of a mutual ending anyways, probably initiated more by her than me. But I remember singing that to myself, and I was like, I don't want to live life like that. Right?
Trying to talk yourself into something.
Exactly. If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. Okay, so you can shift your mindset, sure. But if you're really going to, you know, have to force yourself to love something that you don't, then reconsider what you're doing.
That was back in the day of those weird songs, like that song, Short People Don't Have No Reason to Live or whatever. Like what? What the heck?
Right, exactly. Well, why don't we end on that? Because I'm a short person and I have every reason to live. And
yeah, me too. Exactly. I'm shorter than you.
You are. So, okay. Well, this has been really interesting. This should be our episode called Don't Should on Me. And we have these alternative episode names. But anyways, well, Tracy, thank you for the conversation, and for all of our listeners out there, until our next episode, go out there and rock those relationships. If you liked what you heard, check out our show notes for resources from today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram under Rock That Relationship, and go to our website at rockthatrelationship.com for updated episodes and more great information.
Thanks for listening. Now go rock those relationships.